library friends. I'm Patty at the Pine Bluff Library. Now it is already late July and maybe your summer is dragging. If it is, I've got some ideas to fire you up. Now of course, this is the library, so if you're getting a little bored, we want you to read, and then read, and then read. And there are so many great dragon books that you can check out to fire up your imagination. Large and small, there are dragon books for all. But let's just say you've read about dragons and you get to thinking, I've read about dragons, I want to be a dragon. Then this is the craft for you. This is about making a basic dragon costume. Wings, horns, and a fire-breathing snout. This is also about thinking outside the box. In this case, a cereal box. One morning, I looked at my cereal box and I saw a dragon's wing. I looked at a paper bag and I saw a dragon's horn and snout. Now just a few notes. To do this craft, you'll need to collect things from around the house, so just ask permission. Also, the crafts require a lot of scissors. You will need an adult or caregiver to help. You also may need an extra set of hands. And it's more fun to do this together. So, this is what I used. 2 identical cereal boxes, a paper grocery bag, glue, discarded magazines and junk mail, string, tape, 4 good-sized rubber bands, scissors, a ruler, pen and pencil, and you're also going to need a variety of circle shapes to trace, like a plate or a pot lid, a cup, and a few small things like a cap and some coins. Now these are the things that I used. As you go through the video, you may see some things at home that you could substitute or add. Your design is up to you. The whole idea is to realize that you don't have to buy all your supplies. You can make some really fun stuff with things that we normally throw away or recycle. Let's get started with the wings. First, you're going to want to cut off the top of your cereal box. Then, you're going to want to cut down all 4 sides. When you get to the bottom, just cut off these 2 sides because you want to leave the bottom. And you're going to want to save these because we're going to use them later. Once you're finished cutting, you'll end up with a large rectangle like this. Now, you want to save your 2 sides because you're going to use these later for the horns and some other things. Now you have your 2 rectangles. So we're just going to quickly measure your arm. This fits me perfectly, but if it's too long, you might want to trim some from the bottom. Now we can start designing our wing. Now I used small cereal boxes, but if you have a large cereal box, you just have more room for design and wingspan. But I decided to go with a basic dragon wing, and it's shaped something like this. And as you can see, there are lots of curves, and that's where the lids and plates come in. They'll help us to trace the curves. Now we can design our wing. We first need to make a starting place at the shoulder. So the first thing I'm going to do is measure the width of the end. And this is about 8 inches. And I want to find the middle. So 4 plus 4 is 8. So 8 minus 4 is 4. So that's the middle. So I'm going to come to the 4 and I'm going to make a dot. And then I need that to be about 4 inches. So I'm going from the 4, I'm going to go down 2 inches. So 4 minus 2 is 2. So I go to the 2 and make a dot. And then 4 plus 2 is 6. So I go to the 6 and make a dot. And these are our starting and ending places. Next, I'm just going to use this lid to make a curve at the shoulder. So I put the curve on the dot and I just trace where it comes to the top. Now at the other end, I'm just going to make a larger curve. So I'm going to use the plate. I'm just going to take that plate. I'm just going to trace the curve. And I want that curve to be nice and pointy. So I'm going to use this cup because that's going to give me a little curve. So I'm just going to come right where at the end of that curve and I'm going to trace part of the cup. And don't worry about extra pencil marks because you can just erase them. Then I'm going to use my plate again and I'm just going to make a big curve. And I'm going to just have that match up to the curve that I made with the cup. And I can use my plate again to make another curve, and I want a little width in there. To make my last curve that I'm going to line up with the other dot. So that's going to leave a space for your shoulder. Once you're finished tracing, you'll end up with something that looks like this. And you can just cut it out. Once you have one wing cut out, you can use that wing to trace the other wing. Now, this is the important rule. When you trace, be face to face. So you want either the cardboard to face the cardboard or the glossy to face the glossy. And then just trace around the wing and cut it out. Once you have 2 wings cut out, then we need some way to keep them on your arm. And that's where the rubber bands come in. Now I used a way where I made little toggles. So these little circles that I made just help to give it a little strength. Now to make the toggles, take a bottle cap or a quarter and then you just want to trace out 6. So you could use a piece of the box that has the little bit of seam. You don't want to use the other piece because we need that for the horns. And then you're just going to trace out 6 little circles and cut them out. And you'll end up with something like this. Now, you need to make a hole in the center of each one of your circles. So you're going to go ahead and make a hole, but this is where maybe an adult comes in. Now, you'll also need to make 2 holes at the shoulder. So you're going to come in about 1 inch from the side and 1 inch from the top. So 1 inch from the side, 1 inch from the top, just about in that middle part. And you're going to want to make a hole there, and you're going to make another hole there. Then you'll also need a hole at your wrist. So it would be helpful if you kind of measured about where your wrist was, and you will make another hole in the middle. So once you've got your holes, then you can go ahead and put on these toggles. Now, for the shoulder, you're going to cut your one of the rubber bands. And then you're going to feed it through the toggle, and you're going to want to make a knot at the end. And this is kind of like tying off a balloon. You just pull it through. And then you're going to feed the other end through the hole in your shoulder. And you're going to come up through the other side, put on the toggle, and tie another knot. For the wrist, you don't cut the rubber band. You're just going to put a knot in the end, and then you're just going to feed it through the hole. Now just a note, when you're putting on your toggles, you want to put the toggles face up on the glossy side, because the glossy side is the side that we will be decorating. Once you have your toggles in place, you just want to take a couple of pieces of tape and make an X over them. This will give them a little bit of extra security. And try to make them as flat as you can. Now we're ready to decorate. There are lots of ways you could decorate your wings. I used triangle scales that I cut from magazines. Now, this requires a lot of tracing and cutting and gluing because it takes about 50 scales for each wing. But I'm going to show you 2 ways to do it, and I will also show you some tricks for cutting out the triangles. Now on the easier method, I just took a lot of green from magazines and I just traced some of the elements and then just collaged pieces onto the wing and then trimmed wherever I needed to. And it just forms the wing shape and it goes really fast. But let me show you the triangle method also. Now I used an equilateral triangle, which is a triangle that is equal on all 3 sides. Here's a few tricks for tracing your triangles. When you're going through looking at your magazines, it's really good to look for things that have a lot of color and texture, like flowers and food and scenery. It's also great if you can find pages that don't have a lot of type, and I'll show you why. On this page, I just liked the colors and textures. So here, I just can lay my triangle down and trace, and then you flip it and line it up and trace, and then you'll form a whole line, and then you can use the line again to flip and trace, and then here I have about 13 triangles to cut out. On this one, there was a little type, so I just took my ruler and made a line, and then again I can flip and trace, and there's another 5, so it goes a lot more quickly. Also, when you're looking through your magazines, make sure you're looking for lots of yellow, red, and orange, and cut them out because those will form the fire for your fire-breathing snout. Next, we'll start to glue our scales on because we cut out lots of scales and now we'll glue them on. So you just want to take a little bit of glue and go just along the edge. Not a lot of glue, but just a little. And then you're just going to start at one end and you can trim anything that overhangs. And while you're gluing on the scales, you're going to want to overlap about an inch or 3/4 of an inch. It doesn't matter. Once you've glued your first row, then you want to let that dry for a little bit. And then you can go ahead and start to put in your second row. And so you want to try to just gently lift those up. And you're going to want to give this a little bit of time, just a few minutes to dry, and then put in another layer. And once you're done, you'll have something that looks like this. Thanks for joining us for part 1. See part 2 for snouts and horns.